Number 10 is 2016's Overwatch, released by Blizzard. It's an excellent team-based shooter with amazing and unique characters, a really cool and interesting cinematic universe around it. And one of the biggest reasons that it's this high on the list is the Overwatch League. Because despite its many flaws, the Overwatch League is the most ambitious project in esports right now, or that has ever been. Even though personally I lost almost all interest in Overwatch esports since the league started. Because I just can't get into the franchise models or the teams changing the entire team mid-season. It's still very impressive, and I really hope that the league will be successful in the coming years, and I would like to see it grow into something that everyone can be proud of. It is, however, still my favorite shooter of the decade. I had the most fun with it. I played it for a few hundred hours. Even though I haven't played it in a year or two, I still think it's one of the best games of the decade.
The dragon hungers. The objective is mine. Perfect.
Objective captured.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge.
Number 9 is Dark Souls. This is a really tough one for me because I personally was never able to get into the Souls-like games. I did try with Dark Souls 1, I did try with Sekiro this last year, but it's just not for me. I prefer fun over challenge, even though I do enjoy some challenge. You can definitely use this spot to fill in with Bloodborne or Neo or whatever else was there for the Souls-like genre. Because honestly, I didn't know where to put any of the other games. So everything can just be here with Dark Souls. For me personally, I do think Dark Souls is one of the best games of the decade, even though I didn't like it, because there's like 20, 30, 40 games that are based on a lot of elements of this game. And there's still more coming, which is a good thing because I really enjoy people being passionate about their favorite new genre or game, and it's just very exciting to see more of that. I do want to mention two things I really loved about Dark Souls is first the combat of what I played of it in both Sekiro and in Dark Souls 1 was the combat. The combat is absolutely amazing. I really love the combat, and I wish I could enjoy the rest of the game as much as the combat, so I could experience more of the combat that I love so much. And the second thing I really like about Dark Souls is watching it actually, like speedruns or just first time playthroughs. It's actually quite enjoyable to watch. It's just, yeah, I guess it's more fun to see other people suffer than see myself suffer.
Lord of the profaned capital. Yon the giant.
Welcome, adventurer, to an RPG unlike any other. In a world forsaken by the gods, the people need you to become their next divine. Before you venture forth into the huge and sprawling realm of Rivellon, however, you need to decide what role you will play.
Number 8 is Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, which came out in 2014-2017 and were developed by Larian Studios. In the 2010s, we saw more and more CRPGs, or classic RPGs, being made and loved by more and more people again. Between Wasteland, Pillars of Eternity, and now Divinity Original Sin, CRPGs are as popular as ever. And I think it kinda helped people who got tired of the classic RPGs like Fallout and Kingdom of Amalur, which basically every other game was a 3D RPG with the same elements, a similar story, and similar customization. And as people got a bit tired of the first person or third person RPGs that came out over the years, The top-down RPGs got very popular again, and Divinity Original Sin was without a doubt the most popular one and the best one with the best story, with the most fun characters, and probably also one that you can play for the longest. I do think kind of this resurgence of top-down RPGs came after Dragon Age Origin, which at least on the PC had this top-down, which was very fun and very good. So when that came out back in 2009, I think a lot of people started enjoying like the old Torment or the Baldur's Gate games, and which were absolutely fantastic, and we're finally getting a third part probably this year, also developed by Larian, which is very exciting, so I'm looking forward to it a lot. Anyway, the two highlights of this game are definitely the abilities and the characters.
Your goal. Often your character's ambitions are at odds with one another, so compromise or collaborate to reach your objectives. You can play the entire game with a friend in dynamic split screen, or online as a party of 4.
The Legend of Zelda had a lot of good games in these last 10 years. My favorites were the remake of Link's Awakening from 2019 and A Link Between Worlds from 2013. I wasn't a huge fan of Skyward Sword, and I wasn't really into Breath of the Wild as much as everyone else, which is, I think, the third time. I think I just don't like open world games anymore. I had the same with Red Dead Redemption and The Witcher 3, that everyone loved it, but I didn't. And Breath of the Wild is the same. But still, it is one of the best games of all time, even though I personally don't like it. Everyone else loves it. It's enjoyable, it's huge. But for me, A Link Between Worlds is probably one of the most fun games I played in the last 10 years on my 3DS back in the day. Also, I included Cadence of Hyrule, which also came out in 2019, which was from the makers of the Crypt of the Necrodancer. It's just like a roguelite game, and they kind of put the Hyrule over the Zelda theme. Honestly, it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely, just like the rest of the games. It fits perfectly. Obviously, Minecraft has to be on the list. It was one of the biggest and most influential games of the last 10 years, without a doubt. Even though, personally, I didn't play it since the beta or alpha, which actually came out in the previous decade, in I think 2008 or 2009. But the official one was in 2011, and I didn't actually play that, but that is the one I'm using for this list. And I mentioned it earlier with Stardew Valley. Minecraft is just everywhere. It is huge. It exploded again in 2019 for whatever reason, and it's probably one of the 3 biggest games currently being played, maybe 3, 4, whatever. It's insane. It's really, really good. It is very, use a lot of your creativity in there, and it's just a really good time. I don't think I have much else to say about Minecraft. It's just Minecraft. Everyone knows Minecraft, right? Number 4 is the Elder Scrolls. Of course, this is the 2011 hit wonder, amazing, totally not surprise hit, but really good game anyway that got released like 10,000 times. Skyrim. And later on, I think it was 2014 that the Elder Scrolls Online came out, which was, at the beginning was really, really bad, but it got really good for an MMO RPG, and I even read like some things that it might have more subscribers or more players than World of Warcraft, which is probably not true anymore with the vanilla release and everything. However, it's still impressive how popular it is right now, and I hope it continues. When it comes to Skyrim, I think a lot of people started despising the game or disliking the game, and I do agree that a big part of the reason that it's this high on the list and that it's still fun to play, to me anyway, is the mods, and that there's hundreds of thousands of mods and they're everywhere and it's really fun. I still think for a lot of people Skyrim was one of the games they had the most fun with. Because you do have this open world, and well, compared to stuff like Breath of the Wild, some of the movement is pretty limited. Doesn't look the prettiest anymore. With a lot of mods, it does look pretty good, but also it's still not perfect, even with all of those mods. But yeah, I am one of the few people that's still excited for the next game from Bethesda, the Elder Scrolls 6, which comes out in the next 10, 20, 30 years. But yeah, until then, we still have Skyrim and Oblivion and Morrowind, which they're all still pretty fun to play, even though Skyrim is my favorite at this point. In the third place is Rocket League, which is the game I played the most in the last 10 years, without a doubt. It's a very simple concept. You have the ball, you have 2 goals, and you have 2 to 8 cars, and they try to win. It's very simple. The concept is very simple. However, the mechanical and the skill ceiling is extremely high. And even if you have like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 hours of playing the game, you're still not really good. You're good, but not really, really good. As an esport, it's probably, together with Rainbow Six Siege, the fastest growing one in the last 2 years. Or at least those are the ones with the most potential, I believe. But it's not just competitive, it's also just fun to play casually, like Mario Kart or Super Smash Brothers. It's easy to play on one screen, and it just never really gets boring.
Isaac and his mother lived alone in a small house on a hill. Isaac kept to himself, drawing pictures and playing with his toys as his mom watched Christian broadcasts on the television. Life was simple, and they were both happy.
And at number 2 is the second most played game for me actually in the last 10 years. It's The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, which is kind of a tough one. Because first when it came out in 2011, it was a Flash game, kind of. It was made in Flash, so it is a Flash game. And honestly, when I played it back then, I thought it was absolutely horrible. But then when the remake came out, Rebirth, in 2014, I absolutely loved the game. I played, it's the first game I really played till 100%. I think one of the first ones anyway. I think did Fable 2 as well. But this one was actually very tough to get 100%, like all achievements in. When Afterbirth came out, I still really loved the game. It was really fun. But after Afterbirth Plus, even though I think it was good, it kind of made the game feel more bloated. But beyond that, to me it was a very influential game. It's a game I played all the time for a while. I was really good at it. And when there's a remake, I will probably play it again. However, I haven't played it in a while just because there's too much content in the game. And that, I think, is the biggest problem that The Binding of Isaac has, is that the amount of content, where a lot of items just do the same thing, really. Anyway, that doesn't hold it back on this list, because it is absolutely one of the best games of the last 10 years, just basically because it was extremely influential to people, but also very influential to future roguelites. And it made people really interested in roguelites, so in some way it propelled an entire genre that really was very popular in the last 10 years and is probably gonna continue to be pretty popular.
Without hesitation, he flung open the hatch, just as his mother burst through his door and threw himself down into the unknown depths below.
There's a lot of people back on Earth dying while we gather our strength. They're wondering if we're ever coming back. Friends, family, parents and children. This isn't their fight, but they're buying us time with their lives.
Nothing makes for a better game than a great story. And Mass Effect to me is the epitome of a great story in a video game. You spend 5 years learning characters, learning the world, and just get really invested into it. And for me, what puts this on number 1, and it's not even close to any other game, even Rocket League or The Binding of Isaac, which both are, I played much more than Mass Effect. It was the Citadel DLC, the last DLC that came out for Mass Effect 3, where you had a fun little story. It wasn't a great, like, super fancy, amazing science fiction, action, adventure story. It was just a fun little story. And the rest of the DLC is actually spending time with just the friends that you made in the last 5 years and just preparing for the last mission, I guess. Having a party, some drinks. And honestly, it's one of the most memorable pieces of DLC or game that I ever played, and I really wish that it would continue, even though I do think Andromeda was pretty good. It wasn't quite as good as the original trilogy, which, even though the first Mass Effect didn't come out this decade, and I'm not counting it in this list, Mass Effect 2 and 3 are good enough to be on top of this list, without a doubt. And yeah, that's actually kind of it. And I actually want to end this with a quote from a video from Reykjavik, which is, he makes a series called Years Later, where he gives like a lot of details from development and everything about specific games, and he did them for the Mass Effect trilogy and Andromeda as well. And a quote that really resonated with me was something along the lines of, the Mass Effect universe grew so much that it became too big for the video games. And I think it's really true, because if you look at the past games, all of them had pretty big flaws that in the greater picture didn't really matter too much, because the universe was so real to so many people and everything felt absolutely amazing. And yeah, I think that fits perfectly, that describes Mass Effect perfectly. The games are good. They deserve to be number one of the decade in my opinion anyway. But if you look at the Mass Effect universe, it's not quite as big. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this top 100. I hope you enjoyed and you agreed with every single thing I ever said. Love you. No, I don't. Goodbye.
The toughest, the deadliest allies we can find.
Take the fight to the Collectors in person. Looking forward to the action.
Attacking the Collectors would require passing through the Omega-4 relay. No ship has ever returned from doing so.
The team will have to be strong. Their resolve unquestionable.
We have to give everything, even if that means our lives. We will stop at nothing. We will fight for the lost.